Be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, and be strong. Let all be done in love. Hey everyone, this is the Girded and Guarded podcast. I'm Dylan Waugh, alongside my good buddy Lucas McKenzie. Lucas, how we doing, man?
Doing good. Excited for today. Excited to hear about Luke's story.
Yeah, we've got Luke Sanders joining us, and we'll sort of intro him in just a minute. But two things before we get started. Lucas, first, where can people interact with us and find us on the socials?
X account, Girded and Guarded. And then we're Instagram, Facebook, the Girded and Guarded podcast. Our email is the Girded and Guarded podcast at gmail.com. Please reach out.
Yeah, and like us and subscribe to us and give us a 5-star rating so that other people can listen and be impacted for Christ in what we're doing in this city, Phoenix, and beyond. So hopefully people are listening outside of the valley, or very shortly we'll start listening on a larger scale than just here in town. And without further ado, I want to introduce my good buddy, Luke Sanders. Him and I played baseball together at Arizona Christian University, and he has an amazing story. He served in our military. He has a love and a passion for baseball. So I'm really excited because I think I have personally been impacted and touched by Luke's story, and I hope everybody listening will be too and can resonate or connect with it at some level. So I'm really excited to get into that. Luke, I'm going to start with the first question, and you can take it in whatever direction you want. Tell me about your early childhood and when you became a Christian.
Okay, so I'm born and raised in Cottonwood, Arizona, a little bit about an hour and a half north of here in Phoenix. So I was born in 1993, and my family went to Verde Valley Christian Church in Cottonwood. And so I have a sister and I have a mom and dad. And I really grew up at an early age, getting the Bible read to me, going to church, and really um, being a strong part of Verde Valley Christian Church and a strong part of just hearing the word a lot. And when I was 8 years old, I asked my dad if I could be baptized. And so our pastor, Pastor Jim, came over to the house. And I'll never forget this, but he asked me, Luke, would you give your life for Christ? And I said, I absolutely, as an 8 year old. And so as an 8 year old, I got baptized. And really, ever since then, I've always had a yearning and a passion to learn more about Christ. And so, yeah, my faith started when I was 8 years old. I've always really had faith, but I became a Christian at 8 and grew up at that church in Conwood. And I go to church now at the British Church here here in Glendale. And so, yeah, my faith started. I got baptized when I was 8 years old.
That's really cool. And I've met your father. Would you say he's probably like the single greatest Christian influence that you've had? It's sort of like godly male Christian influence in your life?
I mean, I've had a lot, but absolutely my dad. One small thing my dad does, I want to be more like, and I'm starting to be more like that. But one thing that my dad's done my whole life is every morning he reads a little bit of the Bible, and he has a strong prayer life. He goes to church every Sunday. He's really close with God, and the way that he shows that he's close with God is the way that he loves other people. And I feel like you can't really love God if you don't love other people. And so, yes, my dad has been a strong role model for me and how to live in my faith and how to be close with God.
And so when you and I met was at Arizona Christian primarily. We've been able to like sort of pin this down at some level. We may have had an interaction before we knew each other at ACU from our high school days. Do you want to talk a little bit about, how our high school teams crossed paths briefly
Yes.
we were in high
So,
school?
so I played high school baseball at Mingus Union High School in Conroe, Arizona. You went to Liberty High School. And my sophomore year, I wasn't really playing, but I was on the team and on the varsity team, but I wasn't a starter. But our Mingus Union High School, my sophomore year, we lost in I think it was the semis of the state. We lost to Liberty High School, and it was a devastating loss. We had a great team that year, but then just 3 years later, we end up, you and me, playing together in college baseball. And so it was interesting. That was kind of the same thing that happened with another guy at Arizona Christian. Played him my senior year of high school in the state, Josh Advocate, that is. And then it was just interesting to play against guys in high school baseball and then play with them in college baseball.
That's happened to me, a good handful of times. One of our other friends, Jesse Poeziak, that we played baseball with at ACU, we knew each other from Little League, but we went to different schools, right? So it was like we never really had much interaction through our growing up years. We just kinda knew who each other were. We ended up coming to ACU together at the same time, and he didn't even recognize me because I had gone through like a bodily transformation and lost a bunch of weight. But it's just, I think it's really neat how sometimes God places somebody in your life, and it's only after like years later you put some dots together. You're like, wait a second, like we actually had a prior history, or we crossed paths once before.
Well,
So
maybe I shouldn't call it Sunrise Mountain High School and Liberty High School, or Liberty High School and Mingus High School enemies, but definitely your foes. You're going against each other, so that's one reason that the Bible says to love your enemy, because you never know when your enemy is going to be your ally.
that's true, and I can remember my coach saying, and all of the guys on my high school team, we had a lot of respect for you guys, and we just remember how, like, gritty and hard-nosed you were, and that was, like, by far our biggest challenge, and we didn't like, we weren't sure we were up for the test. So you guys were an admirable opponent for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's thanks to when I was in high school, it was Coach Young, and he was the baseball and football coach. He's now at Bradshaw Mountain High School in Prescott. One thing I really thank him for, to give him a little shout out, is just he taught us that grit and on the field, and to be able to go on the field and play with grit and toughness, is that you need to do the same thing in practice. You need to do the same thing in the weight room. You need to do the same thing in the classroom. You need to do the same thing with your family. Like, you need to be in a situation where you go 100% in a game. You need to do that 100% in life all the time. So that is just another thing in the game, where it's not like it's something new to go 100%.
Well, and isn't that just like our calling as Christian men, that we would be authentic and that we would be the same in every sphere and every area of our life, that we would love Jesus and seek to make him known in the area of our finances and when we're at work and around our friends and our family and when we go to church on Sunday. It seems like that is that's just such a biblical message that I think gets lost in worldliness and just like utility. Like, well, this is just more beneficial. Like, no, this is what Jesus is calling men and women to, that love him and are called his followers. So, Lucas, I don't know if you've got the questions pulled up, but maybe I'll swing it over to you if you want to start on question 3.
Yeah. Hi, Luke. I'm curious, just our this podcast is directed to men. Our target audience is men. And I was just wondering, in your opinion, what is a man? What is the definition of a man?
The definition of a man to me is someone that can be a leader, someone that can lead children, that can lead women, that can lead in the house and the work, and in every way can lead by being a role model and by being an example to others in hard work and other ways. But really, a man to me is a leader. That's what a man should be. And I could expand on that, but that's just the simple answer for me, is that a man to me is a leader.
What do you think are some of the maybe biggest lessons you've learned in your life up into the point of joining the military and kind of going through that big life altering event that happened in the military that we'll get to in a little bit? But what would you say, like, up to that point, some of the biggest lessons you feel like God was teaching you were?
Up to being in the military?
Yeah, up to that point, because there was a lot of cool stuff that happened in your life up to joining the military.
Well, it was something that was before the military, but then the military just made me do more of it. But really, the main thing is two things. It was to work hard, which we already talked about a little bit, but then also um, to never quit. That was just the never quitting part, was something that I got grown on in the military. It was something that I already had been doing, and something that I had to do more of once I was in the military. And it's just hard work and never quitting, and they go hand in hand. To be a hard worker, you can't quit, and to not quit, you have to work hard. So I think those two things are something that I've really been like just really strongly in my actions and who I am my whole life, and really not even just in the military, but before the military too.
For sure, I can see that. Lucas, you want to swing question 5 his way?
Yeah, before we kinda get into the nitty-gritty, but was the military always something you wanted to do? Was that like a calling for you at a young age, or was that something that kinda came
Well,
on, you know, as
it
you
was
got
a
older?
calling as a sorry, it was a calling as a younger child, as a younger kid, my dad being a Vietnam veteran. I have an older father, but my dad was a Vietnam veteran, is a Vietnam veteran. As a kid, I loved watching military movies, like old military
Yeah.
movies. Like I loved Patton, I loved Midway, and that was just something that. So like as a kid, I really was strongly in that, and then I got so into baseball and so much into broadcasting, and I wanted to be a broadcaster so bad, and that I just high school or so was when it came to I want to play college baseball. I want to go as far as I can in playing baseball, and then once playing is over, then I'm going to focus on broadcasting. And then my junior year of college at Arizona Christian, I didn't agree with this because I was working hard and I was showing good results on the field. But my junior year of high school of college, I got cut from the team. And so that kind of changed everything. I tried to go to Illinois and play baseball, but it was so cold and I just didn't like it there. And so I came back to Arizona and didn't really know what to do with my life since I got cut from college baseball. And I wanted to finish my degree, but I didn't want my parents paying for college anymore. So I came back to what I was as a kid. I kind of remembered that I loved the military, that I loved just the idea of being a paratrooper. And so I thought about the military for a little while, for a few weeks, and then I kind of came back to my love of the military, and I was like, I want to be a paratrooper. That'd be cool, so cool to be a paratrooper. Not only to get paid to jump out of airplanes, but also to be able to get Uncle Sam to pay for the rest of my schooling, and not have my parents pay for school anymore. That's kind of how it was. It was like military as a little kid, then just to focus on baseball, and then when baseball abruptly ended, then it kind of brought me back to the military.
What branch did you end up joining?
I was in the Army. I was a paratrooper in 82nd Airborne Division in North Carolina, and yeah.
Well, I think maybe we start there. Baseball didn't go as planned, and that's certainly something I can relate to because I only had one dream from being a little guy, and that was to play in the major leagues. And I fought tooth and nail to try to make that happen. And it was in college where I initially became a Christian because I realized that I was worshiping the game of baseball. I was worshiping this idea of some sort of status and fitting in that I would finally attain if I could become good at this sport. Because that's the thing I wanted, was I wanted to fit in and belong somewhere. And I'm thankful for the way that my college career ended. I had a couple different really bad, gnarly elbow injuries that could have shelved me permanently, but God put some grit and determination in me to keep fighting. And once I let go of the reality that I was not going to make it to the next level after college, I was actually able to enjoy my senior year and end maybe a little bit on my own terms and on a way that I could be satisfied with, and I could feel like that was complete and that ran its course, and I can move on and do something else with my life because I'm not defined as just a baseball player. I am a child of the one true God, and that's so much bigger and more grand than, putting my identity in being a baseball player. But you had a similar kind of trajectory where baseball wasn't really going your way. So you decided to join the military. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. And then even explain to our audience how your plans that you were kind of concocting in your mind about how the military was going to go didn't end up going your way either.
Well, so it's kind of the same theme in both ideas. I was doing everything I needed to do in college baseball. My idea, I'm building to your question, but my idea in college baseball was just playing the JV team freshman year, sophomore year, playing the JV team and get some at bats in varsity. I got my first hit for sophomore year, and then I got cut junior year. And then I started thinking about the military, and then I went in the military, went in the Army. And originally, when I went in, and this is talked about in my book, which we can get more into, but when I originally went in, I signed an option 40 contract to become a 75th Ranger, and I signed it as a parachute rigger. So when I like just the thing about resiliency and things not going as you planned, that was something I learned from college baseball ending abruptly, and then in the Army, I signed that 5th Ranger Regiment contract to be a parachute rigger. Got through basic training, got through airborne school, and then in parachute rigger school at the last couple weeks of the school, I failed the test and got reclassed. And in the reclass, I lost my option 40 contract to be in 75th Ranger Regiment and got sent to uh, be a petroleum specialist, and then got sent to airborne division. And then so all these things were changing where I wasn't going to be in 75th. And then once I was in, I fell so in love with just the Army and being a paratrooper and being in 82nd Airborne Division that I was like, my last name is, this sounds funny, but I was serious. My last name is Sanders. I just have a little bit more schooling to do to get my bachelor's. I want to do online schooling, get my bachelor's, go to officer candidate school and become an officer. And I want to one day become Colonel Sanders. Like that was my real goal, to become Colonel Sanders. But then in 2018, the plans changed. And in August 1st of 2018, as a petroleum specialist working at the motor pool in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I was walking from work one day. I didn't do anything wrong. There was a soldier right in front of me that I just passed the road, and a soldier right behind me. I don't remember this, but it was from his telling, is that I was walking on the crosswalk and look left, look right, look left, and then no cars coming on the left side, and then there was a car on my right side, and I was looking right at the car, and as I was walking across, and then on my left side, a car got on the road, and it was a staff sergeant's wife, and she had her two little kids in the back of the car, and she was looking at her phone and not paying attention, and she hit me when I was in the crosswalk at 37 miles an hour, and that's what this scar is from right here. And I was in a coma for two and a half, about 3 weeks, and it was a miracle that I stayed alive. But anyway, I got medically, I recovered enough to be able to have a good physical recovery, but the Army had a severe traumatic brain injury from the accident, and that's why the Army doesn't like severe traumatic brain injuries anymore. So I got medically discharged, and then in 2020, I got medically retired from the Army. Your question was just about the thing changing. That's thing changing in my life. Originally was I wanted to be a college baseball player, and that ended. I wanted to be a soldier, and I wanted to become Colonel Sanders, and that ended. And so just over and over, and I don't know if we want to talk about my book, but my book goes over and over of this thing in my life of me having a plan for my life, something in the world ending it, and then me having to wait on God and learn about what the new plan in my life is. So once that accident happened, I got medically discharged, and then finished. Went back to the civilian world, finished my degree, and now I'm a college broadcaster again. So it's kind of like baseball ended, the Army ended, and then now I'm back broadcasting, kind of going full swing back on what I loved as a kid, was not just playing the game, but broadcasting the game as well.
Yeah, and I want to hear about your book. I want to promote your book. I want to tell people where they can find it because it goes into so much more detail that we're going to be able to fit into the podcast. So the book is called The Plans I Have for You, an autobiographical memoir by Luke Sanders. And just pick up wherever you want to take it. What do you want people to know about the book? Where can they find the book? And what else can they kind of look forward to in the book that we did not sort of cover in that last question?
Okay, so for first, the where to get it. So the plans I have for you by me, Luke Sanders. The three main spots to get it online are Barnes and Noble. Just type in the plans I have for you, Luke Sanders, Barnes and Noble. You can get it right there, or you can get on Amazon, or you can also get on ReaderHouse.com. So that's the three main spots online. And so basically, a lot of what Dylan and Lucas and I have talked about today is what's in the book. And my young life, becoming a Christian, and then my pursuit of baseball, and then me deciding to go into the military, and then me being in the military, and my injury and my recovery, and then the mental health struggles that I had because of getting hit by a car at 37 miles an hour, and then just from then just going on to what I'm doing now, and having another tough life thing happening of a broken off engagement happening in my life happened last year, and just all these things I live my life of me having a plan. It's why it's called The Plans I Have for You. Me having a plan and then me putting everything into it, and then something in life happening or ending it, whether it be the ending of college baseball, the ending of the army, the ending of my engagement, all these things where what I want people to know is that when you have a plan and you're putting the work in and it ends, you can't give up. Like that's what I talked about earlier with hard work and not giving up. They go together because sometimes you put in the hard work and something ends it. Well, what you have to do at that point is not give up and keep pushing for what God's plan is in your life. He might have closed one thing in your life because of something happening in the world, but if you keep pushing, you can find what the real thing is. Like college baseball ended, so I got to be in the army. Army ended, so I got to finish school. I graduated school, so now I'm called collegiate broadcasting. The engagement ended, so now I have a better relationship that is, well, I'm really with God in this relationship, and like so many things in my life have showed that God's plans, the plans I have for you, the plans that He has for us, is not always the plans that we originally have. The plans that He has for us is something that we have to keep pushing through all the hard times in life to find what the actual plan that God has for us is.
Well, I love that. And what I was thinking when you were speaking just now is the book of James, chapter 4, where it says, "Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why do you do not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills it, we will live and do this or that." And I certainly can relate to that where I think I know best, but Proverbs says, in all of your ways acknowledge the Lord and he will make your path straight. Don't rely on your own understanding. And it's continually that test. I don't know if you feel this way, Luke and Lucas, but for me, I feel like, am I going to trust him today that he can take care of me better than I can? He can give me way more than I can give me. And what he offers is going to be more satisfying than anything I could even fathom or create in my own head.
Well, I agree with that because one thing about that with God's plans that I've learned is that He's given us something, well, what we talk about in James, He's given us today. So instead of thinking about my plans and what the future could be, which I do so much in my life, think about what God has given me right here today. Today, He's given me this podcast with you guys to be able to talk about my book and my life and my story. Sometimes it's good being a future thinker, but I need to think about what God has given me right now, today, and think about what I can do today to build on it and not think so much about tomorrow.
Yeah, I would, you need to send us the links for your book, whatever links you want us to use, and we'll push that out on social media. If you could get that over to Dylan, he'll send it to me, and then we'll do some social media posts for your book because sounds like there's some good stuff, and like you said, we're not going to get to it all today. So looking forward to reading it myself. But I want to. We talk a lot about storms, weathering storms. Constantly we're going through a storm, we're in a storm, coming out of a storm, and it's a cycle. And you've been through some bigger storms than me and Dylan and most probably everyone listening. What's pushed you through? You kept saying, keep going, push through, how'd you do that?
Well, the biggest thing that I have to do that other than God is truly my family. My mom and my dad have been so influential in raising me and my sister and raising us to not be quitters and to keep going. And their love and their support for me is what's given me the strength to keep going like that. And it's really when you have people like my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother-in-law and my nephew that love me the way they do makes it so that quitting is not really an option, and that makes it so natural and so easy for me to keep going because of what they do for me, and it just makes it where I'm not even thinking about it. Where I'm not even thinking about quitting, whether it was when baseball ended, or whether it was when the army ended, or whether it was when that engagement ended, or just so many things where the way that they love and support me make it make me not even think of quitting and make it so even though it seems so hard what I've done of keep going, it makes it like the way that my family loves me makes to me seem like keep going and keeping pushing through and going forward is the only option, and that quitting is not an option, is because of the support that I get from them. And Dylan knows my mom and dad, and so he knows how that works. He can understand, like, Lucas, you don't know me, but Dylan knows the family that I have. He knows why their love makes it so easy for me to push forward and to have the mental toughness that I do.
That's such an inspiration, your story. And it's good to hear that people still have good family and that there are good families left because we live in a society of pansies. And it's just so inspiring to hear how you've pushed through this. You've kept a good attitude, you've been faithful, and your family has stood beside you. It's really awesome, dude.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people don't really realize so much is that I believe that love and strength go hand in hand. The more you love someone, the more they're going to have the ability to have strength, and not just like pushing weight strength, but like mental strength and spiritual strength. Is that the more someone is loved, like I have been loved by my family and friends, then the more love I've had, the more that it gives me that strength to push forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I think men in general tend to stay away from that word love because it doesn't seem manly, but the
Yeah.
real meaning of love.
Yeah. So that's why we do our check-in every time because we feel
Yeah.
too, not just women that feel, and sometimes they're way better at categorizing and feeling things and moving past it. We kinda get knotted up in a big yarn ball, and then we kinda self-destruct or implode because we're feeling too strongly and we don't know how to release that. So, just wanted to throw that part in there as you were talking.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, Luke, what are you doing now? I mean, you said this like you joined the army back in 2018 and 2020 was your
No,
incident
I
at the tail
joined
end
in
of it. What have you been doing since
I
then?
joined sorry, I joined in 2017. The accident was 2018, and I got retired in 2020.
Got it. Okay. So what have you been doing since you were medically retired from the army?
Well, in 2020, I signed a scholarship, athletic scholarship with Arizona Christian and their coach now, Coach McDonald, and I tried to come back and play college baseball again. There's an opening at first base, but then kind of another thing, and I didn't really put this that much. I put a little bit in the book, but another thing of me having a plan and not working was I tried to come back to college baseball. I had a great swing. With my injury from the military, running hurt my left knee at the time. Lifting and swinging hurt my lower back, and throwing hurt my right shoulder because from my injury from the accident. So in October of 2020, I decided to tell coach, "Hey, I just can't do this. I have too many injuries." So I just focused on my mental health and just my recovery for about a year, and then went back in 2021, went back and lived with my parents for about a year and a half, and finished my schooling from Arizona Christian, and then in 2022, I've moved down here to Glendale for my last year of Arizona Christian and finished my degree in 2023. In my last semester, I was an intern broadcaster for the baseball team at Arizona Christian, graduated in 2023. And then in 3 in the summer, I went to North Carolina and worked for the Fayetteville Woodpeckers, single A of the Astros, and I was a statistician there. Then came back to Arizona in 2024. I got the main job for broadcasting at Arizona Christian Baseball, but then I had to leave at about a month of the season and go back to North Carolina and be a statistician there. And then when I was there, I had met someone, and we were in a relationship for a little while, and I moved up to Virginia to be with them, and we got engaged, but then it didn't work out, so I moved back to Arizona, and then got hired again to broadcast at Arizona Christian Baseball, and while getting my master's in history from Grand Canyon, since with my book writing, I want to write historical fictions, so I'm using the GI Bill in that degree because I thought it would be good to give me credibility as an author to have a master's. And then also now how it's going with me being the engagement I working me being back in Arizona, not just broadcasting Arizona Christian, but what I want to do is also teach at that school. So I want to apply there every semester until I get a teaching position at Arizona Christian and in the history department there. And so that's what I'm doing now is wanting to teach and broadcast at Arizona Christian. And I want to continue to write books. What I'm going to be starting to do this summer, Dylan, is write a book kind of the same style of the plans I have for you, with a picture at the beginning of each chapter and a Bible verse at the end of each chapter. But instead of my life, I'm going to write it about my father's life. And so, because my father said kind of same thing, the same story of not quitting and going through. And I'm going to call that book Through the Valley. Pretty much what I have in my life now is three things that I want to focus on for really a long time. And that being sportscasting, book writing, and teaching. And those three things is what I feel called to do. And that's even what I had talked about in my practicum at Arizona Christian when I was graduating, was that those three things I wanted to do. So I just feel super called to stick with that. But I want to learn from what I've learned in my done in my life, of that it's good to have plans, but really just focus on today and what God has given me today. And 'cause you never know what's going to happen in life. But that's really what I've been doing ever since I got discharged in 2020, is finding this new direction in my life of I want to broadcast, I want to write books, and I want to teach.
That's really beautiful. And I something that you said kind of just it perked my ears up a little bit. When I'm hearing your testimony, like, we've been friends for quite a while. It seems like you're not just hung up on what God did, it's what God is doing. You're always adding something to your testimony. And I feel like really in the life of every believer, everybody that's following Jesus wholeheartedly, the testimony should be constantly like not changing, but God should be constantly adding to it, right? It's not just
Yeah.
what God did in this moment in my past. It's like he's still doing it. And we should be able, like, even today, hey, do you want to hear about how faithful God has been to me? Like, I can point to things today. I can point to things this week. I can point to things in this last month that he's doing for me, in me, through other people, allowing me to be around. And I heard you saying that because one of our questions on here is, what are you doing to advance the gospel? Well, you're wanting to be a light through your sportscasting. And I'm sure you're talking to people about Christ and trying to bring that into your sportscasting. You're writing books. Obviously, we've been talking about this first one you've written where you're trying to be a light and advance the gospel that way. And through teaching, I mean, Jesus was the great, not just, but he was the greatest teacher that ever lived, not to mention he was also God incarnate. Even unbelievers and non-believers marvel at some of the things that he taught and can't find fault with it. And so, like, what an emulation of Jesus, just in the next three big things that you want to focus on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm going to do something related to Jesus and all three of those things. Where in broadcasting, like when I broadcast for Arizona Christian baseball thing that I do, the bottom of the second of every game, I do a Bible verse of the game. And I don't really talk much about what it means for the team. I might talk a little bit about that, but I kind of have to go right back into my play-by-play. I just, while the game's going on, bottom of the second, I do the Bible verse, and that's one thing that's such a blessing about being at a Christian school that I did want for a while, to maybe work in minor league baseball, but now I get to work in at a Christian school, and I get to have the freedom to be able to say a Bible verse in the second inning, and I wouldn't be able to do that at a minor league team. And so it's that's one the first avenue in my life I'm getting to show Christ by giving his word in the games. The second thing with writing books, these first two books, the one about me and the one about my dad, I have a Bible verse that sums up the chapter at the end of every chapter. And then the third thing, teaching history, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but when I do, of getting to teach a college history class, I would want to do it again at Arizona Christian. And so being able to see how Christ has worked through every part of history, and he has had his light shine through all these different times in history, is something that will be a great opportunity to teach young students about. But even as a substitute teacher, when I substitute teach, I'm still getting to show Christ's light and how I act with those students, and being like, so broadcasting, writing books, and teaching, those are three ways that I get to honor and show Christ in everything that I do.
That's beautiful, Luke. Just a couple questions more. I'm sure Lucas might have a question or two, but my next question would be, do you have one question that you'd want to ask God right now if you could just get an immediate answer?
Kind of already got an answer today at church. It's, I'm reading. Me and my girlfriend and I are reading the whole Bible together, and I kind of just have questions to God about some of the things that He allows in the Old Testament. Like today, just learning more about like there being slavery in the Old Testament and the Israelites being allowed to do it, to use it and stuff. And so I think what I'm really getting from reading the whole Bible right now is being able to not just understand the New Testament God and Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, but to really get to understand Yahweh throughout history and what He did in the Old Testament. And so that was kind of my question today is like, God, why did you allow slavery for the Israelites in the Old Testament when He just freed them from slavery in Egypt? But I mean, I was able to get that answered today and by the pastor because I asked him. But it's just, I think it's good. Like God wants our questions about Him and about His will, especially when we read the Bible and in the Old Testament. There's certain things where you're just like you're not wondering, and you're just wondering like what is going on here, kind of. But I feel like the more questions I have and the more times I ask people around them, that the more it actually brings me closer to God because I'm really getting to understand more about God and who He is.
Lucas, anything you want to add on either answering that question or something about his answer that stood out to you?
It's Jeremiah 29:11. And even before I wrote the book and um, before the accident happened for a long time, it's been Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, not to harm you, but to give you hope in the future. And there's other verses that are kind of like that, but it it's helped my whole life, but it really helped in my accent because I mean to learn that God wasn't planning for that car to hit me. It was something of the world, that the fallen world, that she wasn't paying attention and she hit me. But He planned since then. He didn't plan for that harm to bring to me, but He planned for all the good that happens from it. From me to like I had paid for the GI Bill to get schooling paid for, but because of my accident, I got undergrad paid for, and now I'm using the GI Bill to get my master's. Like so many things of that accident and using Jeremiah 29:11 have taught me that God is not planning for harm, but for hope in the future. So, like He wants all these things that I've gone through to build towards what He has for me in the future. I mean, I really like Psalm 100, just the whole chapter. Also like Romans 8:28. Obviously John 3:16 is a big one, but really Jeremiah 29:11 for me is just really that verse kind of describes my whole life and my whole faith in God. That God is wanting a hope in the future and He's wanting good for me, and He's not. There might be bad things that happen in my life, but God doesn't plan for those. He plans for the way to work the good throughout the bad. So
Yeah, we were at church this morning and our pastor said, what you give up for following Jesus doesn't compare to what you gain by receiving Him.
yeah,
And like, none of us, all three of us can relate to, we had plans, they didn't go our way, and we probably wouldn't trade any of the things that happened in our life for another way because of how much we love Jesus now, how thankful we are for what He rescued us from when we were sinners and His enemies. And even though they were hard traumas and tragedies and hardships, He's brought good from it. He always promises to bring good from it. If it's not good, it's not over yet. And like when Jeremiah wrote that verse, it's not that it's not true on a universal sense that God wants good for us, but like he wrote that to Israelites that were in exile, that were disobedient and obstinate, and then got invaded and taken into exile by a foreign enemy. And so they're like, God, have you given up on us? And He's like, no, I haven't given up on us. And even with the apostles, like they were willing to, and the early disciples, they were willing to be martyred for their faith. And some people out there might be listening and say, well, like, how is that good? Well, God, there's no evil or shifting shadow or impurity in the Lord, but he can use things that men intend for evil and bring good from them. He promises that. He promises that in the life of every believer, and that's the things that we can connect to. Even through the tragedy, even through the hardship, even through the sorrow, we are still standing because he is bigger, he is greater, he's stronger than anything we can face, and he's already defeated the enemy that only wants to steal, kill, and destroy, but he wants to bring life and life to the full. And so if we abide in him, we can say, come what may, Lord, because you're faithful. It doesn't matter how bleak, it doesn't matter how hard, it doesn't matter how painful. That's not the end of our story for those that are in Jesus. And I think that your entire life, your book, and what you've been saying to us in this podcast is a complete embodiment of that. So I am so thankful for your time. Lucas, do you have any final questions before we ask Luke to pray us out?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. It's a great opportunity to get to let others know, but not just my book, but about my life, but specifically about what God can do in others' lives like he's done in my life.
Right. Yeah. It's truly incredible. I'm grateful for your friendship. Would you mind praying us out before we close here?
Yeah, and just one thing I want to say that there's a reason that you guys, everybody here on the back of the screen, that they get to see this portrait right here or this painting. And for me, I have that painting right there because it reminds me of the Lion of Judah. It reminds me of God. So it's like having that portrait or that painting in my living room kind of reminds me that God is he's a powerful lion. He is power right there, just like that painting represents, and he's always with me and in my life. And so yeah, I'll lead us to prayer. And but I just wanted to say that real quick. But no, okay, so dear God, I just thank you for this day and this time with Dylan and Lucas here on this Girded and Guarded podcast. And just thank you for what you've done in all three of our lives, and thank you for what you've done in my life. And I just pray that people that listen to this podcast are able to grow closer to you through what they have heard of my life. And I just thank you for the opportunity that you've given me and what you've done in my life to be able to show through my actions and through my desire for you, through all the bad that's happened, that Jeremiah 29:11 rings true to me every day, that you want a hope in the future, not just for me, but for everyone. And you want that for everyone to feel closer to you. And I just thank you for what you've done in my life, what you've done in Lucas's life, what you've done in Dylan's life, and just thank you for your presence, that you're always there, and just you're there for us. And Jesus Christ forgives us of our sins, and you're there with us every day. Even if we don't feel it that much, you're with us and you're walking right beside us. And just thank you for who you are. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And just piggyback on that, like when you were praying just now, I just was thinking about something my pastor always says. He says that intimacy with God is life's most satisfying reality. So anybody listening out there, if you have not put your trust in Jesus, hear it from all three of us. It is life's most satisfying reality. You will not be satisfied and nourished by anything else in all of creation, because created things will never satisfy. We need the creator for that. All right, guys, that's a wrap for today. We'll see you next time on the Girded and Guarded podcast.
God bless.